Welcome. I'm Anne Shreffler, professor of music at Harvard and co-curator along with violinist Miranda Cuckson for the 2021 Fromm Players at Harvard. I'm pleased to welcome our featured performer, Miranda Cuckson, and composer Dongryul Lee, whose work, A Finite Island in the Infinite Ocean for solo violin, will receive its world premiere at this concert. The annual concerts at Harvard are made possible because of the vision of Paul Fromm, who established his foundation in 1952 to support contemporary music. The Fromm Music Foundation, since 1972 under the auspices of Harvard University, continues to support the legacy of Paul Fromm by commissioning new works and concerts, events, and music festivals across the United States, including these annual Fromm concerts at Harvard. This year's concert is being streamed online on April 16, 2021, and can be found on the YouTube channel of the Harvard University Department of Music. Violinist Miranda Cuckson's virtuosity and expressiveness have been celebrated by critics around the world. Her repertoire ranges from J.S. Bach to yesterday. She is a path-breaking interpreter of the newest music, as well as of 20th century masterpieces by composers including Luigi Nono, Elliott Carter, and Brian Ferneyhough. Miranda Cuckson has been described as a fearless visionary and the ideal emissary for contemporary music. Composer Dongryul Lee is currently a postdoctoral researcher at the University of Chicago's Center for Contemporary Composition. He earned a DMA from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, where he wrote a thesis entitled 1,000 Bells, Acoustical Implementation of Bell Spectra. His music has been recognized with numerous awards and prizes and has been performed across the United States as well as in Germany, Italy, Portugal, and South Korea. So my first question is for Dongryul. How did you come to write this piece for Miranda?
So I met Miranda in 2017 at the Composers Conference at Wesley College. And then there, it was almost like my first festival that I was invited. And then I realized that Miranda was practicing the world premiere of Georg Haas's second violin concerto. And I was very interested in Haas's music, but in general, the microtonal music. So I asked Miranda about having a lunch together. And then after the conference, which was definitely one of my kind of best experience in new music festivals, she had a kind of a private calls for scores. And I sent my other piano ensemble piece to her. And then she could not feature that piece in the concert, but so we communicated, and then I asked her, okay, I can write a solo piece for you, and then it would be great if you can perform that. And she really generously agreed that. And then so I began to write that piece last summer during the lockdown.
Now I'd like to ask Miranda. This piece looks amazingly virtuosic, especially with the microtones. So how do you orient yourself with the microtones, and what are the special challenges and rewards of learning a piece like this?
Well, Dongryul used quite an extensive system of microtones, which I'm sure he can speak about. Using not only quarter tones, but even smaller intervals, like 6 tones, 12 tones. It's very challenging at first just to listen to all of these intervals kind of one by one and make sure that you're hearing a lot of it starts with the hearing. And I have over years now been exploring microtonality. As Dongryul mentioned, I was premiering a work by Haas. I played a number of his pieces, and he's someone who really explores this terrain. So I had a certain familiarity with it, but really getting into a whole piece where it's such a feature of it is very challenging. But I've really enjoyed finding these on my instrument and in my ear. And I think the thing about it is once you start to hear it, it really opens up such areas of expression and just a really different sound world to be in for a whole piece. So it's been a great exploration.
Dongryul, can you tell us more about the microtones? Do you have a particular method or philosophy?
So I have this computer science background before beginning my musical career. I went to the Yonsei University as a computer science major student and then graduated there. And then I was very interested in music. So I decided to study from the very beginning of the music to learn all the elementary stuff that previous masters learned, such as like a counterpoint and harmonies and so on and so forth. As I studied more and more, I encountered more of recent contemporary music written by like Tristan Murail or Gerard Grisey or later 20th century composers or even like Georg Haas, and realized that I really don't need to abandon this my background because this computer science really helps me to calculate and then capture those harmonies that were totally overlooked or forgotten because of this predominant world of 12-tone system in Western music history. So by using the computer, we can easily calculate what is like a 37th partial of like a F or whatever its frequency is. So the main purpose is to approach the sound world in the frequency domain, not the quantized 12-tone system domain. I think the original music, the birth of the music and then this monody into the organum is based on these overtone ratios. You pile up the octave and then fifths and then third and so on and so forth. So eventually we will reach to this domain of like a very high partials, like a 7th partial, 11th partial or 13th partial, which cannot be expressed in the equal temperament. Even mid-20th century, Ligeti wrote this kind of intuitive microtones called ramifications. Half of the chamber ensemble is tuned the quarter tone down or up, so that they have using 24-tone systems. But later on, he learned a microtonal system from his student Manfred Stanke, who came to the University of Illinois to study with Ben Johnston. And then Ligeti wrote like Hamburg concertos and other microtonal music based on those just tuning systems. It's slightly different, but the idea is using those very non-equal tempered domain in their harmonies.
In Dongryul's program notes for A Finite Island, he refers to the influence of Baroque musical forms such as toccata and chaconne. Did you hear those Baroque resonances when you were practicing the piece? Is that something that is meaningful to you as an interpretive tool? Do you try to bring them out?
Yeah, I found, perhaps even without him describing that in the piece, but particularly the first movement, the piece is in two movements, but especially the first movement. I found it interesting, actually, given that the language requires such an adjustment, but he actually has a lot of musical gestures that, evoke a lot in terms of, what we call the repertoire, and the violin pieces. Nothing direct. It's not like, oh, that sounds like this piece, but it's like certain lines and gestures, and he's using some chords and double stops. Which definitely was evoking some familiar things to me. It wasn't so much that I'm trying to bring them out. It's just kind of figuring out how to make those work with the language that I'm given harmonically as well. And then the second movement is somewhat different. There's some of that, but then he goes into these more extended held harmonies that yeah, it's definitely a different mood, but also I just feel like it's doing something different than referring to those old forms.
What is the one thing you would most like listeners to know before they listen to this piece?
So as the title suggests, the first movement is like a very energetic explorations of different terrains, and then you can like really feel the bursting energy of the first movement, and then at some point you will arrive this kind of a very different sonic territory. So really focus on the sound and harmony for the second movement as if you are hearing a beautiful song, and then I think that's it.
Thank you so much, Miranda Cuckson and Dongryul Lee, for joining us today, and thanks for everyone listening online for tuning in. You can listen to Dongryul Lee's A Finite Island, along with works by Rebecca Saunders, Jeffrey Mumford, and Natasha Barrett, streamed on April 16, 2021, on the YouTube channel of the Harvard University Department of Music. Miranda Cuckson will be joined by pianist Conor Hanick. The program of the 2021 Fromm Players at Harvard will be available after that on the YouTube channel. I hope you can join us.